Hey, it's Mike with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Thursday. It's November 20th. This will be our chart lesson for today, and this is going to wrap up our week. As you should know, unless you're new, no chart lessons on Fridays. I usually try to get out of here by noon on Fridays, so this is going to wrap up our week. As far as chart lessons, I will come in and do the mid-morning chart in the morning, and sometimes I'll trade for an hour or so, but usually I want to get out of here by noon on Friday. So anyway, let's take a quick look at the daily chart. Man, what a day. What a crazy sell-off day. It looked like it was going to be a very bullish day. Um, if you look at my mid-morning chart, I talked about it. We had a big gap on the chart that was way down here somewhere. And it didn't look like there was any chance we could fill that, but I told you if we start trending lower, watch for that. Not only did we fill that gap, this thing just sold off. This thing is ugly right now. I still think we'll probably have a retest of the highs, but nothing's ever written in stone. Even though the odds and the likelihood tell us that based on what we know about price action, that we'll probably retest those highs, it doesn't mean it'll happen. So, I do know that this looks like a capitulation day, but I thought this looked like a capitulation day too with a reversal. But this is really what a capitulation day look, as you remember, as you see, look at that day, and then we reversed. Now, I'm not saying we're going to reverse for sure, but that's kind of what a capitulation day looks like. Maybe the last of the they scared the last of the buyers out, and it's super negative and lots of selling going on, and the market just gets way oversold. But you can see that we're well below the lower band, so the market is definitely oversold. It doesn't mean, I mean, a market can stay oversold a lot longer than you can probably stay liquid. So just keep that in mind, and don't try picking bottoms here. I think there was one or two trades today where I might have marked it um, as a possible buy, but we'll explain it when we get to it. But for the most part, when you get a day like this and it's downhill really strongly, just look for shorts and wait for the corrections to find resistance and then for the downtrend to start back again. It's just the wisest thing to do because this is a really bearish day. I mean, we closed basically on the very low, and I mean this. If you take from the highs to the lows, this is a 250 point day. I mean that's ugly, super ugly, and it scares people to death, and it makes people, and I mean just kind of put this in the back of your head. I'm not telling you to start buying the market, so don't. This is just advice based on what I've seen and what I've learned over my years of trading. When nobody else wants to buy it on a capitulation day like this, that's usually when you pick up a few cheap um, deals on something, and you wait for it to rally because it's coming. We will definitely bounce out of this oversold. Now we might go much lower, so it's always a gamble. But this is usually when you can pick up some deals and make some money. So you want to buy when nobody else is willing to buy, and all they want to do is sell. And you want to sell when all that anybody wants to do is buy, and nobody wants to sell. So that's how your really deep pockets make money. They start accumulating on the way down like this, and then eventually it'll rally, and they'll start distributing and unloading it when it starts going higher. And it's distribution and accumulation, and that's how it works longer term. Now we're day traders, so it doesn't matter to us some more. We just want to see what the day is going to do. Early this morning it was rallying, you want to buy, and late in the afternoon, once it started selling and going down, you just want to sell. So it's a little different as day traders. But just keep in mind as longer term traders, because if you're like me, you've got a 401k sitting aside somewhere from my corporate days, and I've got other investments, long term retirement IRAs and things like that. And so, yeah, the longer term direction of the market is very important to me. But anyway, I didn't mean to get off on too long a tangent here. Just keep in mind that this looks like a capitulation day. I'm not saying it is, but it sure looks like one. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if we don't rally strongly tomorrow and close higher on a Friday. But anyway, let's flip over to the 2000 tick chart. Take a look at what it looks like. You can see the massive volume and the big sell-off. And the problem was on a lot of those strong moves down, there's just not many entries either. But let's flip over there and take a look at it. Okay, here it is. This was a really nice rally this morning, but it looks like not much of anything now compared to this. You can see what a massive sell-off that is. And it's my opinion there's a channel down here, but of course you need to play this shorter term stuff, but there's a bigger channel down here that we had a break and a new low on. And then I think this is a new channel which we had a break and new low on. And then we made yet another move down here, and then it was mostly just chopping sideways into the close. So there it is on a big high level. Let's zoom in here and take a look at it and go through these trades. Okay, I think I'm zoomed in here enough. Sometimes I forget to zoom in and you can't see much of it, and I apologize. So, but I'm trying to remember to zoom in here. But anyway, 7 o'clock came just as we're making this turn, coming up to make this high in this turn. Comes back, and that kind of sets a trend line up through there. And then notice here you have a two-legged pullback. You got a trend down, a break, a new low, and that's a second entry long bullish bar. I like going long right there. Just take that trade and boom, off it goes. And the good thing is if you can catch a trade like this right out of the gate and catch a runner on it, you may not catch a big runner because you can see it came back here. It really would depend on how you'd have to be a little aggressive, and if you're playing it safe, you probably don't get a big runner. You might have still got a couple of points out of that, but well, let's just look. I can't remember. I think you could get 3 or 4 points out of it. Yeah, you could easily get 3 or 4 points out of that if you just exited up here near the highs on any runners. And that's the way a lot of times the easiest thing to do is just go to the next support, and that's where you want to exit. And if you didn't exit there, maybe you exit here. And if you didn't exit there, maybe you wait till the first bar and it gets a negative bar and put your stop one tick below it and then wait. Or you could just move your stop up below each bar till you got stopped out right there, and that gets you out almost at the very top. So yeah, you could get 3 or 4 or 5 points out of that easy, and you're done for the day. But anyway, nice long right there, and then there's 2 legs back and a second entry here, but no setup. But you got a trend possibly coming down, and you can see you get a break and you get a few swings to a new low. I don't see any shorts in there I really like, because you can see that's a first entry, then that's a first entry. Actually, that is a second entry short right there, but it's an inside bar. And then you get a new low here, so that is another first entry. So, and then we bottom out. We do make a new low in reverse here. I'm not crazy about going long right there, but we do have a new low and a nice reversal bar. I think you got to wait on a second entry long or either a high or low or something. But it runs back up here, and we do make a new high here. We got a channel coming up. You get a break, move to a new high, and so there's a second entry short there and a triple test. As you can see that, this should be a little higher here. But you can see that triple test, second entry short. We did make a new high. I like going short there. And it looks like we have a little bit of a trend down, close outside, move to a new low. So there's a second entry long again. And this is kind of sideways stuff, but notice how we're still mostly above the EMA, so there's still, it's not necessarily a range yet. You're making higher highs and higher lows, but you got strong resistance here. So as long as you need room to get out there to go long. So maybe you go long right there. There's a high or low here, but I think it's too close. This one, there's not room either. And you see it does kind of fail a few times. I didn't mark this one. You might make that one green, but I'm just not really crazy about it. But you might argue there's a triple test there. We definitely tested it 3 times. This looks more like a range to me, though, right here. Like we've got a different range going on. And if you look at that, there's not room to get out. So that's the reason I'm not crazy about that one. But anyway, it's there. I didn't talk about this one either. And it's a possibility because you do have your trend up, and it is a first entry, second entry. So it's just not a perfect signal bar, but I think it closes in this lower 1/3. So you could argue for that one too. I actually like this one better than this one because you do have room to get out before you get back here. I mean, the problem is that I didn't like is you're still mostly above the EMA. Yeah, you're starting to get some pushes through, but we may have a different channel working up here, which it turns out we did. We get a we actually, I think you could argue there's a confirmation here, but if not here, and I like going long there on the second entry, and then you get another 2 legs back and another good entry right off the key entry point on the second entry. Now this one you don't have a break of the trend line and a close outside, but everything's bouncing off that key entry point and kind of taking off. So I think you're okay to take that trade. Uh, you might argue this green. It's real close. I like it. And then we run up here. I didn't draw the trend, the shorter term trend channel up, but there is one. And you get a pullback first entry, and then you get a second entry long, but no setup, and you actually look like you're congested here and a little breakout. And so I like going short, just trading that as a breakout. And then you're looking for a long, you just don't really get one. You got an inside bar here, but I wouldn't go long in that. I would just sit tight. Notice how we bounced there at the midline a couple of times. You'd prefer that it's been going straight through back and forth each time. And runs up. We get a little overshoot here, and there is a lower high, too close to the EMA for me. In fact, there's a second entry long there. I did not mark it. I think you could argue for it. There's a 3-bar trend there with a break and new low. So a break above this green bar here would be a second entry. But I don't really like it because we just came off the high of the channel and we had an overshoot. And so there's a good chance you could get trapped. It would have worked if you went long above this bar. If you went long above this one, odds are you probably got stopped out. But I just think you're better off to skip that because we just came off the highs and you do have an overshoot on this last channel up. And you can see we end up running to the other side. Not only that, we get a break here. And you get a pullback to the EMA, that's too congested. There's too much congestion. You can see there's 3 little things of it there. This is actually congestion here too, but you got room to scalp out on this one. So I like this one. And I didn't really draw it, but you could still draw it here. I like that one. Ends up going higher. There's another 2 legs back, but no setup there. And you're just kind of chopping. There's a possibility of a short right there because you get another. And there may be some other trades in here that I don't talk about and don't mark. There's just so much price action and stuff here. You know, I mark the best, easiest to see trades. But there's like this one. You could argue for that to be green. You got a channel work. It looks sideways anyway. I mean, that's kind of what we've been doing here. We started making all these little congestion areas. So there's a possibility there that you trade that as a breakout in the second entry short. It's one of those where I think you need a lower high, and you can see we ended up going higher here. I don't see anything here you can trade working down, and they're all just first entries and sideways stuff. First entry, sideways, and finally you get a close outside, again, just first entry. They're all first entries all the way down. Just no setups here that I trust. And then finally you get a first entry, and then it breaks higher there and fails and turns down. When it goes past that bar, it's a second entry. I think you could enter this on the engulfing bar or wait for it to close, depending. If you're new and you're not a really skilled chart trader that's making money every day, stay away from the engulfing bars. Wait till they close, and if you get a setup on a close, then you could take it, and that would be a second entry short there. Then we're working up again. First entry, close outside, move to a new high, right, confirms that trend line. It's a second entry short. Again, you can't enter on the engulfing bar on this one regardless because it's not completely bullish. So maybe you go short right there. Quick, easy move. There's another second entry right here. Notice you move up first entry, second entry, but we just came off the lows. You don't have enough evidence that prices will turn down off that midline, so I think you got to wait, and you just don't really get a setup. It goes all the way back to the main trend line, and I don't think you can go short there either. First entry, and these are all just first entries all the way down through here again. Now, by the time it gets to here, you might say, okay, this is one of those really strong trends. So if you get a good signal bar on a pullback to this key entry point, maybe you take it. But I only see one, and you got to go short at the very low of the day, and you've met our target. There's the close from yesterday. I forgot to point that out. Notice we opened up here, so there's a big gap. And I talked about if we turn down, we're probably going to try to fill that gap. So you don't want to be going short right into that gap right there because there's a good chance it'll bounce there and you could get burned. It doesn't end up doing that, but you can't take a chance on that. And that's just a first entry. There is a second entry here. I didn't draw this one, but you get a close outside. You don't quite get a new high, and you get a second entry, but the signal bar is no good. First entry, there's a second entry there. Again, no signal bar. And we're working back higher. You're still in this channel, first break, and this one was tempting, but you can see all that congestion across there in that little range, and you just can't go short because this is what will probably happen to you. I mean, that one is very tempting because not only is it a possible failed second entry long, it is a second entry short, but you can clearly see the range working across there. And I just don't think you want to go long into that or short into that support. And you don't want to go long into that either because we're in a huge downtrend. So you just kind of have to sit tight. You do get this failed breakout, so that bar is fairly decent. I think it closes in this lower 1/3, but again, I think it's just a first entry, so and it's a failed breakout, so you probably want to wait on a lower high, and you don't get one. You get a lower high here, but again, you can't go short right into that support because it bounces on you, although it would have ended up working, and that is a, sorry, I bumped my microphone there, so if it was a little loud or scratchy, I apologize. But yeah, I don't think you can enter there. It's a great move down, but you just can't enter there. It's too, next time you enter there, it'll fail on you. And these are all first entries and just no entry here. But notice what happens. You had a break of your main channel. You got this channel for the retest. You had a break and a couple of swings to a new low. I don't recommend trying to pick the very bottom, but when you get this higher low after what looks like a bottom setting up and you're still way away from the EMA and you get a good setup, then, well, I like possibly going long there. And you can see we work back and it works back. I ended up drawing another trend line here because I believe this one is probably played out. If you just extended it, I think it still works out exactly the same, if I'm not mistaken. No, not necessarily. Very close. But I drew it as a new trend, and you can see it maybe still plays out the same. I mean, there's no trades in there anyway, so yeah, you still get your close outside right there at the same place. And you can, that one still, so it doesn't change anything. It doesn't matter if you saw it, you extended that or you saw it the way I originally drew it. I think it's the same exact play either way. So we'll just keep the original trend line on there. Just the first entry there. Yeah, first entry's all the way down. There would be another channel here working down as well. And you do get a close outside and new low. Maybe it could even be more like that. Coming off that first two bars there. Yeah, that looks a little more accurate there. And you get the close outside and new low. Runs up. You get a close outside and new low here right off that original trend channel, or even if you drew the secondary one the way I originally had it. So maybe you go short right there. You're better off to wait on a lower high. You don't get one. Rallying back here, close outside, move to a new high. That's just a first entry. But notice you got a channel working up, close outside, a couple of swings to a new high. That's too congested. And then you get that little failed break higher that makes a new high that's really breaking out of this congestion area here. Draw this one like so. And you do have room to scalp out, and it may go and make a whole new low. You never know. So I like entering there. The overall bias is still down. Here's one. It's just a first entry, but you do have a close outside and a new high. It broke out of this original here. Actually, I think this is a whole separate move, but that's just a first entry. Again, it's a possibility, but I'm not that crazy about it. I think you're better off to wait. You get a lower high here, but no good. And then you're sideways, and then you get another failed breakout. I'm willing to give that one a green one too, because now you've had a close outside this channel and a move to a new high as well, and a breakout of this that's likely to fail. But again, you're better off to wait on the lower high, which comes here. So I marked it red, but this one I'd only give it a green. And it ends up going much lower. These are all just first entries. And finally we get a close outside. Notice you got to move up. First entry, move up. So that's a second entry short. It's a big bar. I mean, I think you should take that trade, because what you're doing is you're coming back and retesting this breakout. If you drag it over there, you can see. So, but I think you get a close outside here. So I think you can treat that like a second entry. Don't trade it on the engulfing bar. Wait for that to close, but there's still plenty of room there. But that's a big bar, like 30 ticks. That's why I'm not crazy about that. Let's change that to green, because it's just such a big bar. It would have worked, but it's I just don't think it's worth risking it. Hope for the lower high or a better setup here, and you just don't get one. It just, the bottom falls out again. So I just think you're better off. I mean, there is 9 or 10 ticks there, I believe, 3 points or something like that, maybe 12 ticks. Yeah, it's basically almost 3 points. So you got plenty of room there back to the EMA. So I think you're okay. But I didn't mark it in real time, just looking at it after the fact with the break and a clear second entry and the retest of the breakout. I'm willing to give it a green. Let's just leave it at that. Now you're working down, close outside. That's just a first entry, the second entry. Now you're in a range. Here you get a little failed breakout. It makes a new high. You close back inside, but I still think you need a lower high here. I marked it green. And then you get another breakout. I didn't even mark this one because there's probably a channel there, but I didn't mark this next one. You're too close to the EMA, and we could be reversing here because everything's played out now. Notice you had the break and a couple of swings to a new low. We could be reversing now, and that's the concern. So I just think you have to skip that altogether. And you do make a higher low, and you get this. Notice what happens. You get a move up, first entry, move up, second entry. It fails quickly. That's what a reversal pattern should look like. And so I like going long there if you understand reversals. That's not for everybody. I would say that's a good reversal, but I would mark it green just simply because it's too dangerous and too difficult to trade for most everybody, and you'll end up being a loser if you try taking a bunch of those. But that's what a good reversal looks like. It pushes through the EMA, pulls back, makes a second leg up. Now, the second leg could be the one that pushes through the EMA, but you want a good move above that EMA that pulls back and it finds support there, and you get a failed second entry. That's what you're looking for. So, first entry, first entry, first entry, first entry. And then we actually get an overshoot on this one, and it just reverses. Again, I don't see anything I like to the downside until here. Notice you get a break. First entry, second entry. I would draw my trend channel off of that. I don't think I'd go short there because the signal bar is no good. This is all too sideways. And we're back in the range here again, and we're dropping down, and I just don't see anything I like. Now, once again, if you understand what these really strong trend channel or tight channels look like, maybe you go short on any of them that come back, but I don't see one here that except this one that's a good signal bar, and now you've had your break, and don't do it once you see a break. Here we do get a first entry, second entry, as long as you've got room to get out there, and I think there's exactly 6 ticks. It gets a little more before it bounces, but I mean, I marked that green. I'm not crazy about it because you're going short so close to support, but there is room to get out there. So maybe you take it. Here you got a triple test to the low side and a big bullish bar. I would almost guarantee you're going back to the trend line, but it's risky trying to pick a bottom, so I marked it green. And it turns down right off that key entry point again, and then you get a first entry, second entry on a lower high. I like taking that just to see if it's going to run down and retest those lows again, and sure enough, that's what happens. And you could draw this trend down, and of course you get the break, move to a new low, and it reverses. Don't try picking a bottom down here. Like I said, you need something more than just a nice signal bar. It doesn't break above it anyway there, so it's a mute point, but just be careful with it. Then we're working up, close outside. Then you get a first entry, second entry. But again, you don't have room there. I would not take that trade. I think it maybe still works, but I just wouldn't take it. Let's see if there was enough room there. Yeah, I mean, there's more than enough room there. I just wouldn't take that trade. If you took it, I'm not going to beat you up over it and say it's a horrible trade, but I wouldn't take that trade. It looks too sideways. Of course, it doesn't go very far, and it rallies out of there, close outside, move to a new high. That's a clear second entry with a nice signal bar. I like that one. You get a lower high. If you didn't go short there, take the lower high. If you'd had a triple test here, I'd say go long on that second entry, but I would sit tight because it looks like we're trying to go lower again. But it does run back up, and you get a failed breakout. Don't try to take that. You need a lower high or second entry or something. And it just runs straight back down until you get a close outside and new low. And now you got a triple test here. And it's also a first entry, second entry. So I like that one. Comes back up. Don't go short yet, even though there's that signal bar doesn't qualify anyway, but it is a second entry short. But even if it had a good signal bar, don't go short there. Wait. It comes back down here and it tests the same low again. Go long. It's another nice setup on another second entry. Runs up. This one breaks out and makes a higher high and is a really big bar. So just sit on that one. That's 31 ticks. But you do get a lower high here that closes back inside. Again, it's a huge bar, 30 ticks, but it does close back inside, so maybe you go short there. Then, of course, you get another bounce down here. I mean, that's what you call consistent. And look how it takes off every time. That's about as good as it gets on how you play a support, what you want it to look like. So just go long there again. You get a higher low, but it's right into the midline, so don't take that one. And you can see what happens. It ends up chopping around before, boom, it takes off. And I'd treat that like a new low. So that's a first entry. There's your second entry. You can't take that. But that's your first close outside. And then you get a couple of swings up. again, you're playing it hard, really risky, I guess I should say, if you go short there. But you do have a break and a couple of moves up, but that's a pretty strong move up. I'd wait on the lower high, which doesn't come, but notice you're working all the way back down, and then you finally get a break outside with the first entry. And technically, it was a second entry when it went past right there. But when this broke higher again and comes back down, if it breaks below that, I'd treat it like a second entry and go short there. And notice you do get it's good for easy for a scalp, but notice how it doesn't go very far. It doesn't go all the way back to the lows again where it should. And then it's taking up out, it's going higher again. So prices are still undecided here. That one's moving up, close outside, move to a new high, but I wouldn't try to go short. Nice move down, bounces there again, and technically you got to close outside the new low on this. So when it does bounce right off that original support, and every time it's bounced, so the problem is it's not the best signal bar, but maybe you still go along there. I'll give it a green. It's getting late in the day, and that does take us into 2:30. So man, what a day. Crazy, crazy day. But there it is. A lot of volume, big, big sell off. Maybe it's a capitulation day. We'll have to see, but I'm not going to wait around anymore. I'm going to wrap this up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.